All right, so do you just want to go ahead and get and jump right on into the first video we want to
let's do
diagnose, I suppose? Sure. Perfect. So before we actually watch the video, how about you give us a little bit of the background in terms of why these people were conducting this warrant on this house?
East Baton Rouge. Okay, yep. So these are deputies that are serving a narcotics warrant. They're attached to, I'm assuming, some sort of DEA task force, if I recall. Search warrant for narcotics. They did a surround and call out on it, so they've already breached the door earlier to the structure. They called people out to them. We don't get to see that on video. We don't know how that happened exactly. I believe one or two people exited, and they're now clearing the structure. I don't believe they knew if there was anybody else in there. So as far as we know, it is unknown if there's anybody else in here. They're just serving this warrant before they're going to search for evidence. They're going to make sure they're safe and search for bodies and make sure everything's secure. So they've already done a surround and call out, and nobody else has come out of the house. So they're going to assume there's people in there, but you just don't know.
Yep. With that, do you want us to go ahead and play it?
Yeah, let's play the whole thing.
Let's do it.
Your calls with me, bro. Take the home.
Yep, take home.
Sheriff's office.
So that's all the body cam that was released. If we had more, obviously we'd share it, but that's the only thing, at least to my knowledge, that the department released.
Mm-hmm. Can you bring it back up, and can we pause it at different spots?
Sure. All right. Is there a particular point at which you want to pause first?
Let's just start here and leave it where it's at. You can see that we got an open door across. I've seen some other kind of YouTube folks do some critiques of this, some of which I think are fair, some of which I think are not fair. They've already done a call out. They just got to clear it. I found it odd that they did kind of a dynamic here, entry into this first room. I thought that was kind of weird. Obviously, there's a hallway left. You don't want to hang out in that hallway, but honestly, I would peek that hallway, and if there's nothing to address there, I'm going to hold, the number 2 guy's going to hold that long cover, and this number 1 guy I would clear that from the door, and I would clear it from that right vertical pivot point on the right side of that door, and I would just slowly pie it. I don't see the rush to go dynamic, but if you press play here, you'll see they go dynamically into this room. I have no idea why. I don't even think he looks left and dynamic, and why? Yeah. That seems stupid to me.
Yeah, at least in that case too, it almost looked like, I just noticed this, it almost looked like the guy who's actually wearing the body cam here, he just pushed the hallway, and he just kind of quick peeked the hallway and immediately took the room. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't like he was a number 2 man who, after number 1 man snapped that hallway, then he pushed to take the room. He pretty much took both there, from what I can see from the body cam, of course. Mm-hmm. I might be wrong.
And I'm assuming there's there's obviously number 2 in there, because when he turns around, you see the number 2 officer.
Yeah.
But, kind of a rush, in my opinion. Really not sure why we did that, but let's just move on.
Yeah. Obviously, like you said, open door, continuation to the left. Again, hallways are dangerous, especially when they have immediate access, such as open doors. So, something where you don't want to hang out on. But in this case, again, especially since it was a corner fed, you can control that 90 degrees as a number 2 man, while your number 1 man snaps that hallway and controls that hallway.
Right. And so, if you look down the hall and there's nothing there, there's nothing there.
Yeah. You just control the doors.
We can hold the exposure, but we have to prioritize something, and that open door takes priority over this hallway.
Especially since it's an end door, which leads to the entire team that's working in that hallway.
Right.
It's a door that needs to be taken.
Yeah. You can't move on down the hall until you make sure your 6 is clear with this first room.
Yeah.
And the fact that the door is open, there's lights on in the room. Yeah, that's an issue. So
in terms of hallways, end doors, meaning a door that's like at the very end of a hallway that's able to look down the length of the hallway. Mm-hmm. The most dangerous doors of any hall, because it puts the entire working element in that hallway in enfilade. some dude can have access to the entire stack in that hallway.
Ooh,
So
enfilade, bonus word.
enfilade.
All right, well let's move on with it. Let's switch to where they set up on this room where ultimately this prepared defender's at. So here's the big critique. So they come to the hallway, they find this locked door. Now a locked door, bedroom door, pretty indicative there's somebody in there. But to be clear, in my professional experience, not guaranteed. Now you treat it like there's somebody in there, you assume there's somebody in there. But honestly, I run into locked doors, residential doors, bedroom doors all the time that are locked and there's nobody in there. Why? Because
What would you say? Sorry to cut you out. What would you say the percentage is on that? Like in terms of if you come across a locked door in a residential structure, what percentage is it occupied versus not?
It's about a quarter of the time it's not occupied.
Okay, so but still the overwhelming percent of the time. So 3/4 of the time.
Yeah. I know you assume there's somebody in there, but just to be clear, it is possible to have a locked door with nobody in there. And a lot of that is in homes where, let's say there's 4 people renting the same home, poor folks, usually the kind of folks law enforcement's dealing with, and they don't trust their roommates, so when they're not in the room, they lock the door, but they don't have a key on the door. So what do? They lock it from inside, they close the door behind them, and they come back and they jimmy it open with a butter knife or whatever. It's extremely common. Other examples of locked doors, it could be the utilities for a rental home. And the owner and that person locks that door. That happens all the freaking time. I didn't count that in my 1/4 of them aren't, because most of the time it's the utilities or some section of the home that the owner of the home wants to keep the renters from getting into storage.
Yeah, like the water heater and so forth.
Right. I'm just talking about purely bedrooms for when they're locked. About a quarter of the time, there's nobody in there. It is what it is. So I mean,
utility rooms tend to be pretty obvious, narrow doors, kind of oddly placed doors. Right, this probably is a small little utility.
Or there's slots in the door. That's common too. So it's also often an outward opening.
Yeah.
But I think people need to keep in mind that if you don't have the law enforcement context, you might look at this and be like, well, of course there's somebody in there. It's a locked door. Well, not a locked bedroom door. Not necessarily. But you treat it as if there is. So here they're going to breach it. Obviously, there's a prepared defender in there with a gun. We should probably say because it's not obvious. They engage the suspect. They put the suspect down. 2 officers were wounded by gunfire. One took it in the vest. He was fine. One hit it in the stomach. He was treated and released. So there's been some critiques of this officer here. So he's standing at the 45, and they say, well, he should have been in the deep angle, or he should have been further back around the corner of that hallway using that corner for cover. Good idea, theoretically, or in the narrow, waiting for that door to open. Theoretically, yeah, I agree. Having said that, your other officer here is having to breach the door with the backwards kick. He has to do that from the 45. He has to. Having done this real life all the time, I'm not leaving that guy at the 45 where I go hide in the narrow where it's safe. I'm not going to do that. He has no one to cover him. His back is to the threat. I'm on that 45. I'm going to stand right where this cop is standing. And everybody, he's an idiot. Why is he standing in the 45? He's not standing in front of the door. He's standing where he needs to stand to support this other guy. Now, if they knew for a fact there was a guy in there who was armed, hell no, they wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
They'd have probably breached the exterior window, thrown a drone in there, thrown gas in there, used a rook, tore the wall off. They'd have done anything but this. But they don't know.
Backed out and surround and call him out.
Right. But they don't know that guy's in there. They just know they have a locked door and there's probably somebody in there. They don't know it's an armed person pointing a gun at the door. The vast majority of people that we contact, the overwhelming majority, are not armed or not waiting to shoot us if they are armed. There's just a gun in the room. My issue is there's a lot of people critiquing these officers, and I'm like, I've done this thousands of times in my career. And if you don't know, you don't know. And the ones that are critiquing the officer are critiquing it, in my opinion, based on what they know there's a prepared defender out there pointing the gun at the door. Well, prepared defender is prepared defender. It's the standard by which all CQB technique, in my opinion, should be judged. And there is no CQB technique that is 100% effective against it. Not one. You're just playing with percentages. So this officer's weapon is some people, he should have been on his sights. No.
Yeah.
that guy could have been on the ground, and then he wouldn't have seen him if he was on his sights. I think he actually does a very fast ID on the guy and snaps up and, says, oh, this guy's got a gun. And he snaps up and fires. He gets his shot off second. The suspect shoots him first. And they're like, oh, he was too slow to ID the guy and shoot him. I don't know. I'm watching it. It seems pretty freaking quick to me.
Yeah.
Given he has to process the entire room in one go, and that guy has already made the decision, I'm going to shoot whatever opens this door.
Yeah.
I just don't think it's a fair critique of this officer. I really don't. Oh, he's an idiot. He shouldn't have been standing there. He's covering his buddy. Now, if the door wasn't locked and they could just pop the door and back up, okay, yeah, you could make an argument for hanging out in the narrow. But without knowing 100% that there's somebody in that room, this is law enforcement. This is the job. Mm-hmm. It's not safe. You wear armor for a reason.
Yep. My big thing, probably my biggest critique here on this, for this particular moment, was the overcrowding of this doorway. So, we'll call red shirt guy, the guy who has his gun up currently, and I'll call him, body cam guy. So body cam guy right now, he doesn't really, he has no purpose being there. Mm-hmm. So, he can't shoot, not effectively, without getting around.
No, it's polluted. His lane is polluted.
Yeah, it's so he has no reason to be there. Which, again, you've heard me say this, and I will say this to the day I die. Overcrowding is a cardinal sin of deliberate CQB, and you see it all the time because people want to work, people want to get in, and they want to do something. But a lot of times that leads to people crowding an area in which they have no reason to be there. And in this case, unfortunately for body cam, he's the one who took it in the adamant. So red shirt, he's the one who took those rounds to the vest, which he was fine, of course, thanks to his armor. But body worn cam, he took that round to the admin. He had to go to the hospital. So overcrowding, the only thing you do by overcrowding is limit the working people's ability to maneuver, right? So like red shirt, if he needed to bail right now, if this door opened and he decided he wanted to bail,
he can't.
Body cam is getting in his way, right? It's
I agree.
At very best, it's going to slow him down. And at worst, overcrowding leads to excess casualties, like people being shot who didn't need to be shot because they didn't need to be there. And in this case, that's exactly, unfortunately, what happened.
With the best of intentions, because they want to help. But yeah, you're right.
Of course.
So let's press play and just see where that suspect's at in the room and how they're oriented there.
There it is. Perfect.
Okay, there you go. So, obviously we got a hand on from the camera officer on this guy's shoulder. Why, I don't know. And yeah, right there. It's a prepared defender in the narrow. That's tough.
Yep.
And, to be clear, people say, well, that officer should have been in the narrow. He could have still just as easily lost. Yep. If he'd applied from the narrow, because it's a prepared defender. It's... I mean, what happens if he'd have gotten shot from the narrow as he was pieing? Oh, well, he should have been ready on the 45. Should have been on his sights. There's always that critique. I think some people critique there's a door across from this door. There's like an opposing door. And they said, well, they could have cleared that one first and kind of set up some positions there to have more lanes in there. I mean, that's fair, but ultimately somebody still has to kick that door. So it's just... somebody's got to be up there, and I'm not going to leave that. I don't think you should leave that person hanging with their back to a threat after they kick the door with nobody supporting them and nobody covering that exposure. That's not how we do things.
I mean, it's hard because even as the red shirt trying to cover the breacher's back, he's technically not even really able to cover his back because he's at the 90 degree.
Correct.
And that 45 degree that he would be exposed to, he as the breacher, red wouldn't be able to cover that anyways.
You're right.
Now, luckily, right, which in this case, being able to read rooms via external factors, meaning you can tell that this room's a corner fed room, right? Just by the fact that how this hallway set up, it's a corner fed room, right?
Well, they were just in the other room. They were just in the adjacent room. So yeah, it's reasonable to assume that this is a corner fed left. Well, based on this guy's perspective.
So it's one of those things where the breacher is at a relatively safe area to breach, because it's rather rare for people to be on the shallow side of a corner fed, right? If they're really barricading in and want to be basically be a barricade shooter.
There could be a threat straight into the 90. There could be. I mean, or not even, just people, just people that are non-compliant or whatever, hiding, disposing of drugs, any number of things. Maybe not even a deadly force threat. Maybe they're just going to try to tackle the officer, fight the officer. Any number of things can happen. I would not be comfortable leaving that out. Hey, you kick that door, I'm going to be way out here in the narrow where it's safe.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen.
Breaching's dangerous. It is, mechanical and ballistic breaching is extremely dangerous.
And that's a hollow core interior door. We're not going to use a ram on it. We're not going to use a one-man or a two-man ram. There's no room to use a two-man. We're not going to use a one-man. We're just going to kick them. That's what we do, because they're easy to defeat.
But it's still breaching.
Yeah,
it's a lot harder than just rotating the knob and pushing the door.
Absolutely.
You kind of have to put yourself out there as the breacher.
And I think this approach is a lot smarter than a single person with a rifle kicking the door by himself and being his own breacher and his own security.
Way safer.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it's a good argument for ballistic shields. Our team uses ballistic shields. I know a lot of teams don't. I know a lot of non-SWAT units, and this is obvious. I don't think this is a SWAT unit. Although I think it's interesting the guy has ear pro for just a narcotics guy. That's
and a helmet.
Cool. Yeah. Oh, right. So he's probably on the team, or at least SWAT trained. But either way, a lot of teams don't like ballistic shields. They can't stand them. But when they already know you're there because you did a surround and call out, and you're basically doing a slow clear, why not?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You've given up any sort of advantage that you would get from them not knowing you're there, from any sort of surprise. There is no surprise. They know you're here. You're probably going to end up, if you encounter resistance, it's probably going to be prepared defender. Why not use a shield?
Yeah. Now, to be actually fair here, we're kind of assuming that they were doing a deliberate clearance. But, again, we're judging this entire clearance based on 20 seconds of video.
Yep.
And then that one room they took prior to, attacking this door. And they took it rather dynamically. Maybe they intend to take this room dynamically. And that's why
we'll never know.
The body cam guy is stacked up on the number one man, and they intended to breach that door and just dump that room. Which in this case, if that's what they were doing, then of course body cam warned guy, he is in the appropriate position for that immediate breach and enter.
That's a valid point, and that would be incredibly stupid because they already know you're here because you announced your presence. That would be incredible. I don't know why you would do that dynamic. It's stupid. So who knows? You're right. They already did one dynamic. Who knows? Maybe that's how they do things.
Possibly. I was just thinking about that. It's like, well, we're going back to how we would do this, which would be deliberate. But if they're not playing by those rules, things are different.
There's a surprising.
Again, I would not agree with that. Of course, the same reasons you discussed. I mean, the mission profile itself, to what we know, there's no reason to go dynamic for this clearance. But if that's what they were doing,
well, and there's a ton of teams that do that. Time for the post-video shameless request for support. If you guys like my content, you want to see more of it, please like, subscribe, hit the little bell. You guys know how YouTube works. Better yet, support my channel. Go to my website, daishotactical.com. There you can find a variety of products that I make myself at my workbench. I make a variety of slings in a bunch of different colors, quite a few different models. I also make shooting bags. Any money spent at the store really does help me moving the channel forward and making more content for you in the future. Thanks for watching.